According to sources, OpenAI is losing a lot of their top talent, particularly in the safety-focused area, and this could have big consequences. But what's even more scary is the reason why they're leaving, and it has to do with AGI. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. Today I want to spend a little bit of time looking at a post from Toga Bilge and then some things that Daniel Kokotajilo, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, sorry if I'm getting it wrong, who is a philosophy PhD student and worked at OpenAI until recently, has had to say about OpenAI and what he expects they will do when they actually reach AGI and when he expects AGI to happen. So let's start with the pieces first. Again, from Toga Bilge, OpenAI are losing their best and most safety-focused talent. Daniel Kokotajilo of their governance team quits, quote, due to losing confidence that it would behave responsibly around the time of AGI, end quote. Last year he wrote he thought there was a 70% chance of an AI existential catastrophe. And then if we look at Daniel's biography on short form, we can see he says, philosophy PhD student, working at AI impacts, then center on long-term risk, then OpenAI, quit OpenAI due to losing hope that it would behave responsibly around the time of AGI. Not sure what I'll do next. Views are my own and do not represent those of my employer, etc., etc. So the interesting thing here is that he doesn't have another job. It's not like he's quitting and moving to another job. He's quitting and is not sure what's going to happen next. And the reason he quit, of course, here is very specifically due to his concern that OpenAI would not behave responsibly at the time of AGI. That's artificial general intelligence. Again, just to be pedantic, I want to make clear that I think that most people are talking about AIA when they say AGI. In other words, they're talking about artificially intelligent agents or things that have some sort of willpower, some sort of agency. In other words, they want things, stuff like that. AGI is not going to be particularly dangerous in the sense that it doesn't really have any self-directed willpower. It doesn't do anything until you prompt it to do that. Now, of course, bad actors can use that for very, very bad reasons, but good actors can use it for good reasons, and there will always be an arms race. But as soon as you have an artificially intelligent agent, and especially one that's as smart as the smartest human being, and then eventually the ASI, the superintelligence, the thing that's smarter than human beings, that's the problem, because then it has its own will and its own motivation to do things. So again, I think people use a slippery term when they say AGI. I think they're actually talking about AIA. But of course, that's just my take on it. Daniel might have a different opinion about that. And then just to add another data point here, we can see that Daniel has a 70% p-doom, that is probability of doom. If you watch Dave Shapiro or lots of other people in this space, you know that p-doom expresses the probability that something will go catastrophically wrong. It will be very, very bad. It could be a situation where an artificial superintelligence puts us into eternal suffering or something like that. That's Dave Shapiro's like worst possible outcome, right? I think that's pretty reasonable. That sounds like the worst possible outcome to have. It's essentially hell. I mean, you're just stuck in some place where your brain is constantly being fed pain and you never have any recourse and you can never escape it and it will never end because you can't die. So that would be pretty bad. Anyway, Daniel clearly has a very, very pessimistic view on things, thinking that there's a 70% chance that something that bad could take place. And of course, if we look down here at his post, you can see, I think AI doom is 70% likely, and I think people who think it is less than, say, 20% are being very unreasonable. So that is an interesting statement too. Not just my personal opinion is at 70%, but if you think it's less than a 1/5 chance, then you're being unreasonable. That's a pretty strong statement he's making, especially considering that he was working at OpenAI at the time. All right, and now let's jump to Daniel's short form. I'll leave a link to this in the description if you're interested. You can see he started in 2019, but what I'm interested in here is something from 2 months ago. In fact, exactly 2 months ago as I record this, February 21st of 2024. This is 10 big concerns he has about AGI. Again, I think it's AIA instead, but whatever. We'll just leave that alone at this point. I'll read it as it says. Probably there will be AGI soon, literally any year now. Now, of course, that gives a lot of wiggle room. That means it could happen this year, or 2030 or 2032 or something like that. And most AI researchers at this point think that by the end of the decade, we're going to have AGI. So that's not a ridiculous statement by any means, although on the near end, we could be looking at 2025 or something like that, given what he's saying here. This, of course, is where it gets more interesting. Point number 2, probably whoever controls AGI will be able to use it to get to ASI shortly thereafterwards, artificial superintelligence, maybe in another year, give or take a year. In other words, once you have an AGI, something that's super intelligent, you can use that to bootstrap itself to create something even more intelligent. And of course, that can continue because once the AI can make itself smarter, essentially it can sort of procreate and it can keep making smarter and smarter and smarter, like, quote, babies, in other words, iterations of itself. And then we get to another point that many people have expressed. Probably whoever controls ASI will have access to a spread of powerful skills and abilities and will be able to build and wield technologies that seem like magic to us, just as modern tech would seem like magic to medievals. So the important takeaway of this is that whoever gets there first is probably going to win. You don't need that much of a lead. You only have to be a couple of months ahead of the competition once you get to ASI to create something that's so far in advance of whatever else is out there that people won't even recognize it as technology anymore. It'll be more along the lines of what Arthur C. Clarke said, which was that any technology that's sufficiently advanced will seem like magic, and that's what he's saying here. And of course, speaking of that, point number 4, this will probably give them godlike powers over whoever doesn't control ASI. And then we start getting into the more philosophical realm, which I think is really cool. 5, in general, there's a lot we don't understand about modern deep learning. Modern AIs are trained, not built, programmed. We can theorize that, for example, they are genuinely robustly helpful and honest instead of, for example, just biding their time, but we can't check, and that is very true. Point number 6, currently no one knows how to control ASI, in other words, superintelligence. If one of our training runs turns out to work way better than we expect, we'd have a rogue ASI on our hands. Hopefully it would have internalized enough human ethics that things would be okay. That's an interesting question because human ethics, there is no human ethics. Each individual has their own ethical grounding and societies tend to have a generally accepted ethical stance, but all of the globe together, that's a pretty big ask. Point number 7, there are some reasons to be hopeful about that, but also some reasons to be pessimistic, and the literature on this topic is small and pre-paradigmatic. So as a philosopher, Daniel here is saying that basically there's not a robust amount of people thinking about this, or at least writing about it, and it's from before the paradigm shift. It's pre-paradigmatic. In other words, it's kind of old school thinking, it's not new school thinking, and so it may not be very helpful in this transition. Point number 8, and we can see this referring to OpenAI right here. Our current best plan, championed by the people winning the race to AGI, in other words, OpenAI, is to use each generation of AI systems to figure out how to align and control the next generation. If that seems like a risky idea to you, it seems like one to me as well. And as Daniel says, point 9, this plan might work, but skepticism is warranted on many levels. And then finally, point 10, for one thing, there is an ongoing race to AGI with multiple mega corporations participating, and only a small fraction of their compute and labor is going towards alignment and control research, which I gather is what he was working on. One worries that they aren't taking this seriously enough. So there you have it from somebody who is working at OpenAI in their safety area, saying in this post that he worries about the race to the bottom, basically the race to get to AGI without worrying about anything else, any of the consequences. He has a probability of doom of 70%, and he quit OpenAI because of his concerns about the fact that they're not paying enough attention to safety and alignment. So all of these things have kind of coalesced over the last few months in his life, and whether or not you agree with Daniel on his specific points, I think it really shows how quickly and how potentially recklessly OpenAI and also Google and also potentially Apple and Meta and even XAI could be running towards this thing to try to get there first, to try to cross the finish line without really worrying about what happens after they cross the finish line of getting to AGI and ASI. So one small bright spot in this whole thing is at least OpenAI has had some philosophy people on their staff before. I've been calling out in several videos that they need to balance out their engineering staff with people from the humanities, people from philosophy, things like that, to try to get a wider, broader spectrum to take a look at what's going on as they move towards these artificially intelligent agents, potentially very, very rapidly. So that's actually a good thing that they've got people like that on staff. The bad part about that, of course, is that Daniel at least has quit, and it sounds like there may be many other people in that sort of area, in the safety area of OpenAI, that are also quitting, and that's pretty scary. So we don't know all the answers, and Daniel could just be an alarmist, but it is a definite concern, especially if he's not the only one. And that's what Toga was noting in the post that I started off this video with, is that there are a number of people who are quitting in that particular area at OpenAI, and that should concern us all, that they are racing headlong to get to this artificially intelligent agency, AGI, ASI, whatever you want to call it, that they're rushing headlong towards that. And as they do that, they're scaring quite a few people that work there, particularly in the safety area, and those people are quitting along the way. So that should make us all rather concerned. I definitely am concerned. Let me know in the comments what you think. And while you're down there, please do like and subscribe. subscribe, and assuming the AGI doesn't arrive, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.